I mean, I look back when I was at TSB and I was on the working group to design the first ever website.
But now you've got to really hone down on the strategy, find out where the target market is, where they're living.
The way that people engage content is different. They just consume media differently. It's on demand, it's short, it's sound bites.
Welcome to the Video Marketing Podcast from us here at Arc Media Group, experts in all things video, marketing and social media. We are committed to helping brands unleash creativity and amplify their impact. This podcast isn't just about trends, it's about actionable insights to help marketing leaders stay ahead in an ever-evolving landscape. You join me, Graham, the Managing Director of Arc Media Group, for today's episode on how video is shaping the future. We are also lucky enough to be joined by Nicola Gittins, the Deputy Director for Student Entrepreneurship and Enterprise at the University of Birmingham. This episode is all about how video is impacting the future, more specifically how video is being utilised by those within the educational sector to educate, inspire and inform. We will be focusing on how the schools and universities utilise video compared to those within the corporate sector, also looking at how we can use video in education over the changing times. So Nicola, thanks for joining us. Just kick us off, tell me a little bit about yourself and obviously the role that you're in now.
So I work at the University of Birmingham. My official title is Deputy Director, as you said, Deputy Director of Student Entrepreneurship and Enterprise. Too long to say.
Easy for you to say.
Yes, no, exactly. Can't spell it. And that's essentially helping our students and graduates start their own business, which is a privilege and a pleasure to do. I also look at student engagement, run a head up a student engagement team who's about employability. And I've been a marketing lecturer, so I've been in higher education for about 15 years, both on the academic side and now on the sort of service side. And prior to that, worked in marketing on client side and agencies for 15 to 20 years. Want to lose a few years as you get to my age. Working with some brands like Land Rover, Barclays Bank, some brands that don't exist anymore. My first ever job was with Mercury Communications, which nobody's ever heard of, but people still remember the Mercury Music Prize and still know that. And that's a brand that hasn't existed for years. Yeah. So that's lots of experience, but marketing at the thread of everything I've done.
Yeah, lovely. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
So just to kick off, as I mentioned before, this podcast is very much around the future of video, but I kind of wanted to take us back a few years and I kind of wanted to get your insight on how you feel the video's changed, because obviously I appreciate you've come from a commercial background, then moved into education.
Yeah, so I did about 20 years in the commercial sector before the last 15 in education, so I wanted to try and age myself. I think video, and certainly if I look at sort of TV that we used to do, it was literally big budgets. You pushed the content out and you waited for the audiences to come. So really what we've seen obviously is more about video being engaging, storytelling. It was just we had fun creating videos. But now I think what we've seen is every single touch point along that customer journey, video can add value. And that certainly wasn't the case when I first started, which was a long time ago, unfortunately.
Why do you think that has changed over the years?
Well, I think obviously technology, if we do this, we've obviously got content, we've got ease of making content, but I think what we've got is just so many different ways of reach. Marketing, when I first started out, and it's still the same, the biggest challenge is not just what you say, but how you reach somebody. And now that plethora of channels, plethora of ways of reaching, different touch points. I mean, I look back when I was at TSB and I was on the working group to design the first ever website for TSB. And we just started thinking about what content should we put on there? Should we have an interactive calculator? And it just felt like a brochure being put online, to be honest. But now, we as consumers are different. I look at students, they're mobile first, digital only. So the way that people engage content is different. So marketeers, brands, organisations have to think differently, and we've got different ways of doing it that just didn't exist.
Yeah, I think we've very much kind of felt that from a business perspective as well. When the business first started out, it was creating a video for a website or just a wider marketing piece. But now you've got to really hone down on the strategy, find out where the target market is, where they're living, even down to the finer details of what ratio to shoot it in and all that kind of stuff.
And I think, as I say, us as consumers, consumers, we expect more now. We expect ways to engage with brands and organisations differently. And as I said, you can't have this one-size-fits-all approach that certainly was there. I mean, yeah, I'd like to think that we did target marketing in those days, but we just had it was just mass media on a different scale, really.
I suppose the target market's changed a lot, really, because there was less places for them to be targeted on.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
You know, I joke at work. I am so far away from I'm a Generation X, so far away from sort of Generation Z and Alpha coming through. They just consume media differently. It's on demand. It's short. It's sound bites. You know, just even things like YouTube. You know, YouTube will be your how-to guide. You know, that's what, you know, if they're stuck on anything, they'll YouTube it. Yeah. So it's just a different way of engaging with media that just certainly didn't exist when I started my career.
Yeah, perfect. So how long have you been obviously within the education sector then?
About 15 years now. Yeah. So again, you know, quite a lot of change over that time. But, you know, within marketing arena and now primarily I'm working with students to start their own business, but also I have a remit about talking about student engagement, especially around sort of their employability. And so that's one of the things that we're trying to talk to students on a subject that probably isn't always their first point of call of subject, and trying to engage them in something about thinking about their futures. Yeah. But obviously we are an organisation at Birmingham of 40,000 plus students, 8,000 staff. So again, a quite complex organisation, not necessarily in terms of what we do every year. It's, you know, very cyclical in that sense, but complex in terms of the way of engaging students, because so many people competing for their attention.
Yeah. So I'm gonna bring up that word that we all don't want to hear is pandemic. So,
right.
So how did you feel like the pandemic was within education, and did you think video played a big part? Obviously, was that the start of the shift, or was the shift?
That was the start of the shift. I was at a different university when the pandemic hit. We certainly weren't ready for it. So all of a sudden, it's like, you know, everything that had been such a live, in-person, synchronous experience. Like, okay, how do we go now to a digital asynchronous experience? So, you know, your first thing was actually, let's just record a lecture, and that's still the case. You know, recording live experiences to replay it back. And yeah, you know, we have videos that are recorded, but sometimes it can just be still somebody standing at the front of a lecture theatre being recorded. But that wouldn't have even happened to the scale. People were talking about it, but not to the scale that it is now.
Yeah, I mean, even reflecting back, it's like I can't remember how I used to communicate with clients, because now I just jump on a Google Meet or a Teams call, and that wasn't around back then. No. Was it even 2019? It's like,
well, I remember I certainly remember sort of, you know, 2020 when it hit, you know, seeing into students' bedrooms that I thought I'd not necessarily always want to do that, but literally students were obviously trying to adapt to this, but then again now it's the norm for them. So the video, again, going back to video just being about sort of, you know, information, a support element, it is now a delivery channel in a different way for us than perhaps it certainly was 5 years ago.
Yeah. So obviously we've touched on the past and how videos changed. So currently, let's fast forward to now, really. How do you utilise video within the communications at the university, but then also within the education side of it?
So we're certainly growing our social presence, which you'd expect, and obviously using video within that as a way of engaging, and using peer-to-peer video. So, you know, students creating content to talk to students, which again, you'd expect that. We're using video to support our communication, and I don't mean that as an ancillary, but it's part and parcel of our sort of comms mix. So just to give you an example, we run open days now. We bring that student experience to life. Yes, we're talking to parents and prospective students in a room, but we're using video to bring the experience to life. So hearing real stories, hearing students talk about, this is what worked, this is what didn't work, this is what I love about Birmingham. And you couldn't do that through any other sort of means. So it is very much embedded into what we do with our comms. Social, yes, delivering on open days, but we're also using it to educate students. So we run lots of initiatives we want students to be aware of. We simply send an email. It's on deaf ears. You know, students don't read emails. And as much as we say they should or could, They don't. So actually, again, we've got to reach them in different ways and to educate them and make it easy for them and quick sometimes to get information and digest it. So we're using video just to start to educate them on some of the things that are happening around the university.
Yeah, I mean, something that we've probably struggled with as a business, because we're all very video orientated, with the high quality cinematic video. And obviously something that we've had to adapt is, obviously we call it the quick and dirty video, you know, like pulling out your phone or your Osmo camera. And obviously we've had to adapt with that. Obviously we've got clients on TikTok now, which is good because it shows evolution. But do you feel like there's ever a sense of we need to use high quality cinematic video for one campaign and quick and dirty TikTok scrollable stuff on the other?
Completely. And I think, again, as well, going back to, I mean, in some ways it's traditional marketing principles of who are you talking to, what do you need to say, and how's best to deliver it. So those principles have not gone away. But if I look at that, as you say, quick and dirty versus polished, we've got a big PR campaign going on at the moment, or a campaign going around our 125th birthday. Yeah, we've got some lovely drone shots around the campus, beautifully shot. But still, when we then translate that 125 message into something that's the students, it could be students walking around even on their phone, creating content that then is digestible and reinforcing the polish as well as the sort of quick and dirty. There's places for both, and there should be both. They complement each other.
Yeah, I think the quick and dirty is very nice from a student's perspective, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's
shows, authentic.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly that.
Yeah.
And if you want to show the breadth and the beauty of campus, then you get a high quality drone in the air.
Exactly. No, exactly. And as I said, it's that still that marketing principle of who you're talking to, what you're trying to say, and how best you deliver it.
Yeah. So out of obviously the different areas of the university that you know of, which parts aren't utilising video more than they should be in terms of the marketing side and the educational side?
I think from the educational side, I think from the marketing side, we're getting there. I think we could do even more. I've touched on open days. I think there's more that we can do about open days and bringing the experience to life to help students make decisions. If I think about education, we're recording content delivered, so that might be a lecture, a seminar, but I think it's more than that sort of bite-sized video to support learning. You look at what's on YouTube, as I said, you know, the generation that will go to YouTube to work out how to. Why can't we do more video content to supplement, you know, that educational experience? Now, I don't know if that's always a budget issue, but again, going back to what is the quality of production, and does it need to be, you know, quality always first, rather than content first.
I think it's much more shifting between the quality of the content sometimes.
Yes, exactly, yes.
Yeah, and it's always
that's a much better way of saying it.
It's always something that we're always looking out for, even when we're doing the interviews or we've got a presenter in. It's like, you know, it's how they're saying it and when they're saying it.
Yeah.
I mean, a big trend that's coming out at the minute, and it's obviously the shift of that quick and dirty. People's attention spans are getting a lot shorter.
Yes.
So there's something called micro-learning, which has come out, which is people scrolling, learning for 30 seconds and scrolling again.
Yes.
Do you think that will have a big impact on kind of the education of students and how they learn?
I do. I think there's a fine balance between an academic being very purist and wanting to go in depth, and there's a place for both. And I think it's that supporting, you know, not saying it's supporting, it's got to be a supporting, it is complementary. And if you get both bits right, they amplify each other. There is no doubt, as I said, that students go on and learn in different ways. You've got learning management systems, which obviously support, you know, schools and universities, and they've been predominantly been text-based. Yeah, you know, we should be... you know, that scrolling, you know, and learning by micro. I think the challenge is the platform and the access. You know, do you have apps that literally are underpinning the learning rather than the traditional learning management systems that would be very sort of scrolling text-based environments?
If you had a learning platform that could replicate the likes of TikTok and Instagram Reels, where they could learn a module in 45 seconds, scroll, read a little bit, and then go again.
Completely. And created content. I think, you know, there is a thing coming out, in fact, I just saw it really recently by the Office of for Students, whereas actually that sort of Netflix style of content that you create and curate, your own sort of learning environment and what's interests you. If you come to a university and you're a medic, you're going to expect to learn. Obviously, we want our medics to learn in depth and to learn modules, but actually there is a chance to supplement that. You might do a sort of an additional module, an optional module on certain things. Whereas actually, can you, like that sort of Netflix style, you have a dashboard of video content that you are curating yourself to actually then support your learning. That would be fantastic, and I know that is being discussed.
Yeah.
It's not a huge leap, but it is a leap, and obviously it's going to be a transition in that sense, because there is this sort of view of, if you're paying for education, is it always got to be in person, live? No, it's got to be a holistic learning experience, and that is coming out more and more.
Yeah, and I mean, even if it is in person, I think it's using this as a backup and a reminder for research.
And kind of that sort of bookending learning, so the sort of pre-a-live session, post-a-live session, as I said, they'll reinforce that learning, so it will amplify that learning. And without a doubt, as I said, the sort of Generation Z going into Generation Alpha, they will demand that content without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've all already kind of talking about the future of video and where we think we can go. I mean, if you did have a crystal ball right now on the table, where do you think where do you think video will fit within education in the next 5 to 10 years?
My view is that it will help students self-serve their own learning. Go back to you said sort of scrolling, rather than being a death scroll of students doing it themselves. It will be that supportive role of adding value to the whole experience, and it will be not self-directed, but students being able to, as I said, make video a key part of their learning experience. I think the challenge you've got is, how is that video created? Do you have lecturers trying to create that content, digital innovators, learners trying to create that content, and then it will have to sort of re-engineer an element of the learning experience.
Yeah, I suppose it's got to have the combination of the two, hasn't it?
Yeah, no, exactly.
It's got to be audible. You've got to be able to actually hear it and see it, but then you need the expert knowledge that underpins it.
Yeah, and if you look at some universities, especially some of the sort of US universities, they're putting a lot of content out free. That is video content, they're giving away, I suppose, if you like, their intellectual sort of ideas free, with the idea that it's again bringing people into the brand, just as
builds trust.
Exactly,
yeah. We've done that because obviously we manage a few of our clients' social media channels, but with video very much underpinning it, and especially for the thought leadership stuff.
Exactly.
It's passing on that knowledge in incremental bites that over time it will slowly build up
completely.
trust and expertise.
And you use the word sort of authentic as well, and I think it's building that authentic experience, which has to happen in education, just as it happens with other brands outside of sort of the public sector or education.
Yeah, lovely. So, what's the key message to businesses and organisations and in educational organisations, that aren't using video? Are they going to get left behind if they're not kind of on it now? Do they need to start building it into their future plans?
I think so. And as I said, you've seen this sort of, if you there is obviously a big discussion around student engagement, and without doubt recognising that you have to do it. I think there is this view of, is it a bit of content, go back to your quick and dirty, is it some quick and dirty content on social versus the polished open day sort of lovely shot, or actually is it something in the middle of good content that is polished and enhances the education experience, and then you've got the normal wraparound sort of, if you like, sort of marketing experience of communicating the experience.
Yeah, lovely. And then I suppose my final question over to you, really, and it's a hard question, probably the hardest one of the day. If you had an unlimited budget for video, how would you utilise that within your marketing strategy within the university itself, but then also from the educational side as well?
That is a hard question, because you start going to, can you do sort of exotic sort of, drone shots all the way around and location shots and who features in the video. I don't think I'd go for one thing. I'd go for breadth, because I think, as you talk about, if we talk about education, especially in the higher education, it's communicating what you're about to attract people. It's giving them an experience when they're there, and actually it's taking them with them. You know, one of the challenges we've got is what happens to graduates when they leave. And video to me is, it touches everything along the way. So if I had an unlimited budget, it would be a little bit of everything along the way, rather than a great big video and a polished thing. I think it would be across the entire touch point of the student experience.
Yeah, perfect. And obviously it's been very much me asking you questions, but do you have any questions that you kind of want to ask me from a video perspective?
I suppose where you know, in terms of sort of, you know, the developments in video, as you say, we've moved from a sort of high production value to content being created in different ways. Where do you see the sort of sector going?
Yeah, so my perception is in the next 5 to 10 years, I think, you know, if you look at the market, you've got the bottom, lower end of the market, which is the quick and dirty stuff. You've got the middle of the market, which is kind of around the £2,000 mark, and then you've got the high end stuff, which is 5-10k plus. I think very much that middle of the market is going to die out. You're going to have really high polished stuff that, you know, it's going to have its place. Then you're just going to have a lot more of the kind of like the lower end stuff. And I just think it's because everything's accessible now. Like, you know, it's not always the best, but you know, you've got a content creator in your pocket, effectively.
No, exactly.
But yeah.
And do you see an attitudinal shift from sort of generations now coming through?
What was that? Sorry?
An attitudinal shift in terms of people thinking about video in different ways? Yeah,
I think it's so readily available now. I think every time you go onto a social media channel, all it takes is a couple of scrolls down the page and there's a video there. So it's, you know, the more mass produced it is, then the lower the quality gets, because anyone can do it.
No, exactly.
So it's just forward planning.
Yeah, no, exactly. Really. And not being left behind.
Yes, very much so. So thank you very much, Nicola, for joining us on our video marketing podcast. So that's going to end this episode, but join us next time where we'll be discussing high value campaigns, how video is utilised in businesses in large value campaigns, helping increase brand awareness, drive sales and promote a product or service. Thank you.